I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Hello, everyone. Here we are again for a wonderful chance to connect. And connection is actually a part of this talk, which is entitled Humility. And that, of course, is day 32 of the Tao of Joy Every Day. And the subtitle, which I'll try my best to unpack as I move through this presentation, is calm, aware, and connected. So I'm just going to jump right in. So Derek starts out this chapter by talking, well, first of all, by stating a well-known Chinese saying. And heaven beyond heaven. And basically it means there's always someone who can do what you do or do what we do better than we do it. Now, if that's an uncomfortable thought for you, there's good news. The good news is that we don't really have to worry about comparisons. Why? Because life's not a race. Life's a journey that we all embark on when we're born. And a journey that ends when we arrive. So, how do we get humility out of all that? You know, it's funny with humility. It's easier to talk about what it's not than it is to really talk about what it is. Humility is not being arrogant. Humility is not controlling people. Humility is not seeking credit. You know, defining things in the not isn't bad. It tells you what to avoid. But if you want to know what you need to do, or you really want to do something, you also have to know what it is. That's the question that when I read this chapter again, I really asked myself, what is humility? And more importantly, how do we cultivate it? Well, the simple fact is there's three things you have to cultivate first. The first one is calmness. Calmness is something that begins within you and then travels outward into your environment. And it does it without you saying a word. or without you making a movement. People who control their state can remain calm even when there's a fire going on. If there is a literal hell, those people can walk into it and calmly take people out of it. So what's the second thing we cultivate? Awareness. Knowing what's going on. The environment throws stimulus at us all the time. Most of us don't pay attention to it because we're locked in our heads. Our bodies tell us things all the time. Most people don't pay attention until they're really, really suffering. So cultivating awareness is a super important part of being able to cultivate humility. So the last thing we have to cultivate before we're ready to cultivate humility is connection. And by the way, this last thing that we're cultivating, it's the thing we all want. It's the thing everybody wants. Is it true or not true that when you're connected to the Tao, you experience joy? The Tao of Joy every day. Well, because the Tao encompasses everything, you can connect to anything. But the most important connections that we have are with each other. What I notice in my life is that if I do want to influence people, I have to make sure that I'm connected to them. That's why connection is the key to humility. Because in order to connect with someone, to really connect, they have to know that you understand them. Now, notice that it's not that you have to understand them. A lot of times you'll understand people. But you also have to behave in a manner. You have to move through the world in a way that lets people know you understand. And I can tell you what I've learned in my 48 short years. Talking isn't the best way to do it. We talk all the time, even when it's silent, right? There's a voice that runs in our head. Unless you're calm, unless you're aware, unless you're connected. You know, the best leaders are humble leaders. Why is that? Because, leaders come in all types, right? There are leaders who get what they want done. There are even leaders who get people to want to do what they want them to do. But that's not what sages do. That's not what the Tao's about. The Tao is about getting people to understand that you understand what they're telling you they need. When you do that, you connect with people. And then you have their attention. Then you just live by example. So that's really what humility is. It's living by example without wanting any recognition, any notice. The only thing you want people to notice is that you understand what they need. And just demonstrating that allows people to get what they need. Sages know what people need, but they don't meddle or interfere. It's very different from the ad industry that has, there's a whole study of influence and persuasion. There's tons of information on that. How do they get people to buy soap flakes? The more I read ads and study influence and persuasion, I see how it works. But the real key difference is the phrase. Humble leaders don't get people to want to do what the humble leader wants them to do. Humble leaders get people to understand what they need to do. For everyone. So, I want to give an example of 3 people that I share really good connection with. And that, of course, is my wife, Wendy, and my 2 children. And, Bill kind of said this in his talk. As a parent, when your kids are young, and my children there are young, my adopted children are actually quite old now with families of their own. But as Bill said, when children are young, you do have to influence them. You have to teach them. What do you have to teach them? Now, the most important thing you can teach them is how to be calm, aware, and connected. And it all is linked together in a way. It's all linked together. And it's funny, I'm going to tell a little story about a typical day at my house that happened 2 days ago on Friday. I came home from work. And the first thing I noticed when I walked through the door was that Christopher and Wendy were in the kitchen dancing, and the music was playing. And I noticed that Ellie wasn't around because she was in her room. And I came in, and Wendy and I kind of knew what was going on that day because Wendy and I talk on the phone. So I had the main strokes. But the connection intensifies in person. That's where it's most important. And Wendy was, as she was dancing with Christopher, was multitasking in a way that women are so good at. She was also cooking dinner. And I had brought home the broccoli that she needed to finish. And the thing is, it's funny. In my house, when I want to know what's going on, Christopher's always the one who knows how everyone feels. He doesn't speak yet. He says a few words, but he has Down syndrome, and his talking is delayed. He does talk a little bit, but mainly what he does is he signs. And you can always tell what's going on by observing him. And Ellie, of course, is 5.5, beginning to develop a sense of self, which is normal and healthy. And Wendy and I were sitting and talking, and they were playing in the living room, as they do. They play quite often. And Wendy, of course, always knows what the kids need. And she knew that Christopher needed to drink something. And Ellie had his cup. And so Wendy asked Ellie to make sure Christopher gets something to drink. And she began running around the room with the cup and keeping it from him. And he began laughing and chasing her. They were having fun. But obviously some influence has to be exerted, right? We have to basically make sure that, one, Ellie does what her mother tells her to do, because her mother knows what's best in the dynamic of the family. So I came into the living room and I calmly said, Ellie, give your brother the cup. And she just laughed and kept running. Now, this is the thing. This is where people go wrong a lot of times. With kids, of course, I can exert all the influence and power I want at this age. But I'm also aware that the path of least resistance is better for everyone. So I said to her, Ellie, I calmly asked you to do something. Why aren't you doing it? And she came back with, I don't want to. This is typical behavior from children, right? Again, I can exert a lot of power and influence if I want to. I could physically grab the cup out of her hands. She's 5. I'm 6'3", 220. I can get that cup and do whatever I want with it. But I thought about water, largely because of what Derek's recently been talking about, water. And I turned toward the kitchen. I said, well, Ellie, if you won't give your brother something to drink, I'm going to have to get him a cup and get him something to drink. So I turned toward the kitchen with every intention of doing exactly what I said, because with children, you have to be consistent. You always have to do what you say you're going to do. So I turned to do just that. And when I turned back toward the fridge with the cup to go fill it with juice, Ellie put the cup down. And she calmed down. And then, of course, Christopher calmed down because he feels the energy change. If I could be like water all the time, like at work, that's where it's really hard to be like water, right? Because I have positional authority at work. But you know what? If I was more like water, I could be more of a humble leader like I am at home. Why is this easier at home than at work? Well, there's more love at home. Not that I don't love the people that I work with, but there's just naturally more love at home. It's easy to be humble when you're connected to the people you love. So when you're if you want humility, start there. Start with the people you love. Start with the people in your inner circle. Figure out how to get calm. Figure out how to get aware about what's going on with them. Figure out how to connect with them, the people who love you most. Because everyone wants to be understood, not just the people in your inner circle, but all of us, all of the 7 billion people here. You know, I think of the Cassini mission around Saturn. It was done a few years ago. And they, the probe got into a position behind Saturn and took a picture. And off in the distance, there's this little pale blue dot. And that was the Earth. And from that perspective, it seemed really small and insignificant. And yet, as Bill said, there's 7 billion people running around that planet. Can't wait to connect with each other. That's why we're here. That's what it means when it says Tao produces 1, 1 produces 2, 3 produces, right? I can count forever, but it's easier just to say a myriad of things. So I see that I've run out of time here, so let me start to sum it up. There is always someone who does it better. That is okay, because life is not a race. It's a journey we take together for each other, not for ourselves. And yet, in a way, it is for ourselves because we're connected. To cultivate humility, cultivate 3 things first: calmness, awareness, connection. And connection is the key. Connection is the key to humility because only when we connect with someone can we understand what they need. Sages are humble leaders that know what people need by paying attention. They influence everything by moving through their world with a code of understanding, compassion, and love. If you don't believe me, try those 3 things for a week: calmness, awareness, connection. And if it works out well for you, especially if you start with the people you love, and I can almost guarantee you, like Bill always says, the Tao teachings are time tested. It's like mathematical. If you do it, it'll produce results. Do it for a week, just with your family. Then do it for 2 weeks. Do it for 3 weeks. Do it for a myriad of weeks. Do it for lifetimes. Okay, so that's it. Let me end with the book recommendation. The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. Thank you all so much for listening to what I had to say today. I hope I said something that was helpful, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Alex, thank you so much. Your talk reminds me of the time when I visited Taiwan and spent some time with several of the Tao masters there. And I could tell definitely that some of them had cultivated the virtue of humility to a very high, spiritually attuned degree. And it's exactly as you described. These are the people who are so calm in any situation, and they were very much aware of what was happening at all times. And not only that, but as you say, they were very connected. That is, they were the ones who build relationships with other people. So when you're with them, you definitely feel that you're in the presence of this energy that can also calm you down, make you more aware as you connect with this spiritual energy. So definitely, very much a requirement, I think, to becoming a sage, the virtual humility. And so thank you for that. Very nice talk.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传十一鞠躬，斜翻一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.